So I wanted to introduce the way of counsel by making a couple of videos using Zoom, because Zoom is the format that we can actually use for the way of counsel in this COVID environment. The way of counsel is a structured, formal way of communicating, building community, and creating a space for deep sharing and for deep wisdom to arise through this kind of community-based sharing opportunity. So there are 5 intentions when we set about engaging in the way of counsel. And these intentions really sort of set the framework for how we hold space for one another and together. When we are familiar, when we uphold, when we observe these intentions, it creates an environment that's safe for people to share. And it creates an environment that allows truth, deep wisdom, trust to grow and to develop. And so these are just 5 simple intentions that help to create a very powerful practice. So the first intention is that the container of counsel is confidential. What is said within counsel stays within counsel. So it's important that we all observe deep confidentiality. And what this means is that anything that's brought up within counsel is not spoken about outside of counsel, unless the person who brought it up in the first place in counsel chooses to engage with you about that subject again. It's inappropriate to go to the person who's shared something outside of counsel and then pick up a conversation about something that they brought up inside of counsel. Just really allow the container of counsel to be a sacred space, a confidential place where people can talk about things that they wouldn't ordinarily talk about. And we hold that. It's an important thing that we ask for ourselves and that we can provide to everyone else in the council. The second intention is to listen from the heart. And so what this means is that so often when we're listening to somebody, when we're engaged in a conversation, we're actually only partially listening. We're engaged in thinking about how we might have said things differently, or how we might advise that person, or how we might respond to the things that they're saying. And in council, one of the functions of having a circle format is that it allows us the space, the opportunity to put those things down. There are some other structures, guidelines around council that I'll get to later, but the biggest thing is really council, the biggest function of council is to also help us cultivate a capacity to listen, to actively listen to a person without interrupting, without arguing, without getting in the way of what they're saying, but just to allow each person to have an opportunity to speak without being judged, without being reacted to, without hearing other people's opinions. And we don't speak or interrupt or question the speaker. The person who has the talking piece is the person who is speaking, and everyone else is actively listening from the heart. So in order to do this, we need to be open to understanding and accepting others just as they are. We have to commit to really staying present and centered, giving somebody else our full attention. And as the circle goes around, you're going to notice that you're off thinking about something else, that you're getting involved in, figuring out how you're going to respond or react to someone and what they're saying. And when you notice this, part of the practice of counsel is to just bring yourself back to center, to reopen yourself and to re-engage with just the act of listening openly. By listening, by listening fully to the person, you're really helping them dig deeper. So often when we're talking, we're looking at the responses of other people and allowing their responses to actually direct which way we're speaking. And in the way of counsel, it's really helpful to just really kind of maintain a neutral presence, actively listening, and allow each person to speak in a way that guides them deeper, guides them more fully into their own truth. For a lot of people, this intention is one of the most difficult, but it's really one that's recognized as being essential to developing a more peaceful and empathic way of relating to others. It goes beyond tolerance. It goes into really compassionately accepting other people. You don't have to accept their opinion. You don't have to accept their perspective, but it does lead to a greater acceptance of that other person. The third intention is speaking from the heart. When you receive the talking piece, um, speaking from your own heart, from your own truth. Um, One of the practices is speaking into the listening. So, what's suggested is that we really um, speak from feeling rather than thinking about. Making your process when you're speaking as transparent as possible. It doesn't also necessarily mean using words, talking. You can use song, sound, movement, uh, even spontaneous expressions, from your heart in any form. And as long as you make them reasonably, don't be offensive or anything like that, but they're welcome. Sometimes the mood or the theme of a particular council circle brings to mind a song, or reminds you of a poem, or even spontaneously can lead you to sing or speak, and that's welcome. Even sometimes just holding silence. If you've got the talking piece, you can choose to just be silent and hold that silence. um, that's totally acceptable. And there's no obligation to say anything, to offer anything. If you don't have anything to offer, you don't want to say anything on a particular round of counsel, you can uh, hold the talking piece for a moment just to really sort of check in with yourself and make sure that there's nothing that needs to be said. And then you can just pass on your turn to speak. It's totally fine. The fourth intention is succinctness, uh, speaking to the heart of the matter. Whatever the theme is, whatever's coming up for you, the advice is to be lean of expression. And it really helps us to attend to what is important. Um, Oftentimes in conversation, when we're with somebody, we repeat ourselves or we say the same thing in a number of different ways because we're not feeling like we're being heard. And one of the values of being in counsel with other people is that everybody else is practicing uh, intention number two, which is listening from the heart, active listening. We're being listened to in a way where nobody's interrupting or arguing or advising, just listening. So we don't need to repeat ourselves a bunch of times. We don't need to make sure that we're saying the same thing over and over again in different ways. We're being deeply heard in a way that maybe we've never been heard before. And as there are often many participants in a council, it helps us to be aware of that, just that simple fact that there are other people to speak. So we want to be aware of taking an appropriate amount of time for what we're wanting and needing, what we're feeling to say. So certainly it doesn't necessarily mean be short. Sometimes there's a lot to say that's on our heart, and we can allow space for that. But to just really be reflective of being succinct, speaking to the heart of the matter, and allowing others to speak to that as well, allowing space for them, just ensuring that there's enough time for everybody to share. The fifth intention is spontaneity. uh, what what needs to be said at the moment that you receive the talking piece. And this is so much easier to do if we're actually practicing uh, the intention too. Sometimes when we're listening to other people in conversation or in counsel, we're so busy rehearsing what we're going to say. We're so busy trying to remember the points that other people have said so that we can, respond to them or reply to them. And the space of counsel is really not intended that way. And in the next video, about the touchstones. I'll get more into that. But for this video, really understanding that if you're truly listening from the heart, if you're truly creating an open presence that people can speak into, then when it comes your turn to take up the talking piece, the first thing that I recommend doing is really just taking a moment to connect with what you're feeling, to connect with the theme of what the council is addressing, and to speak what's coming up in that moment, not what you were thinking about a few people before, not what you figure is a really great, brilliant point that's going to make you look good, but to really check in and in that moment be spontaneous. You can surprise yourself by not planning on what you're going to say or how you're going to say it. If you focus on your own story, what your own experience is, what you're feeling in that particular moment, um, it allows you to actually teach yourself. The things that come out of your mouth will surprise you. Spontaneity really encourages playfulness, sincerity, and there's a genuineness in it that also inspires and helps other people to share as well. So those are the 5 intentions of the way of counsel: confidentiality, listening from the heart, speaking from the heart, being lean of expression or succinct, and being spontaneous. Simple rules that really shift and change the container to make it a place that honesty, truth, community, and wisdom can arise naturally. Thank you.